Our story begins with a young lady washing the dishes. She is Mara, getting a flashback of being in the woods. She soon comes across a young man who it appears she was seeking. He wants to know what they're doing there. Mara brings him over to a ledge so they can look at a few snakes beneath them. She expresses her admiration for them. In turn, he does the same to her. She responds with a smile. Then her flashback ends, causing her to hurriedly go outside. The next scene has her walking with her friend, Dilly, along with her dog. Dilly tells her she hates doing what they are about to do. We soon learn she means hitchhiking. They manage to stop a van to get inside. The young ladies enter a convenience store. Mara greets the cashier as Sister Slaughter, who asks her if the pastor knows she's there. They will be quick, Mara tells her. While out of everyone's sight, Mara steals a pregnancy test. Upon the duo purchasing 2 items, the sister tells them they're going to be late for worship. Due to this, she decides to give them a lift. Outside, the girls mention a party. It's uncertain how long they waited, though soon a man arrives in a truck. His name is Augie, the guy we saw in our protagonist's flashback. Sister Slaughter is his mom. The dog gets to ride in the back of the truck with a lot of open space, while the 4 of them resort to squeezing into the front. The animal gets the better deal. Eventually, they arrive at Mara's house. She hides the pregnancy test she stole under some lumber beside the house. Following this, they ride to church. Inside the establishment, we see the preacher preaching with an abundance of enthusiasm. For some reason, he takes out a snake to share his lively joy with it. Mara is there, briefly shown to hold her chest with some discomfort. After the worship, a young man tells the preacher that someone was bitten by a snake some time ago. Once he lost his life, a certain law was passed. We soon learn that the preacher is Mara's father. His name is Lemuel. During dinner at Lemuel's house, the guy he was talking to, Garrett, is with them. When Mara's father goes to sleep, Garrett tells Mara he never thought a girl like her would consider him. She is gorgeous, he says, and not just her face. Not wanting to be arrogant, she replies she's worried he might think too much of her. According to him, it's only the truth. After he leaves, Mara collects the pregnancy test from under the lumber. She's about to use it, yet the light turns on in the window beside her. This prompts her to go elsewhere. We don't see the result of her test. We just see she looks slightly worried. On the next day, she prays alone in the woods. As she prays out loud, a man continues her prayer for her. It is revealed to be her dad, who she prays with together until they finish. He then asks if this is about Garrett. Kneeling to his daughter, he says nerves are not a sin. She must follow God as closely as she can, for he will guide her path, because the devil is going to do his best to ruin her. He concludes by kissing her. Later, Mara asks Dilly if there is any word from her mom. Dilly just shakes her head, saying she doesn't want to talk about her. After that, Mara sits knitting with several women. Sister Slaughter is there to tell her they have to make a serious decision to figure out what kind of lady Mara will become. They also have to find her the right man to help her do it. By sundown, she says Mara's mind should be made up on Garrett. In the next scene, Lemuel walks with a group of people in the woods. He soon hears something, which makes him ask if Garrett hears it too. The man nods his head in agreement. Lemuel says a snake is lying in the leaves, which he encourages Garrett to capture. The young man is anxious to do it. Lemuel educates him that they respect the serpent, though they don't retreat from it. Garrett uses a stick to move the leaves about until he finds the hissing snake. Afterward, Sister Slaughter, whose real name is Hope, comes to Mara. She says her only vice is smoking cigarettes. We can be fairly certain there are several others she is blind to. She starts telling Mara she lived an entire life before she found this place. For years, she was lost. Away from this special location are a bunch of dumb sheep wandering in the dark. A man named Zeke found her. Her concluding words to the girl are that when the devil is taking you down, you need someone to see the truth that you do not. Then Mara goes to see Augie. He shouldn't be there, she says. It upsets him that she would say something like that. After exchanging a few more words, she tells him things were never supposed to get this far. They can't go any further. According to her, they are never going to make sense. Even more upset now, Augie tells her they're the only ones that make sense. What's keeping them apart isn't real to him. Her dad, with his religion, has nothing to do with them. Mara has to remind him that it's her religion too. The next scene has Dilly entering Mara's room to braid her hair. Dilly asks her if she has made up her mind about Garrett. To Mara, Garrett is a good man who hears God in a way she cannot. However, her friend is interested to know whether Mara likes him. Although she says she does, we do not feel the strength in her words. She also says she should possibly make her decision, not just for this life. Following this, Mara comes to see her dad in her mom's dress. He says she looks just like her. It probably pains him to be reminded of her mother, which might be the reason he tells her to take it off. At a different time, there is a small gathering in the woods. Lemuel wants to say a few words about his daughter. He says God tested her at an early age by taking away her mom. Regardless of that, Mara has grown into a fine girl, with a good man who has asked her to be by her side. He asks her what her decision is. Smiling, the girl says yes to Garrett. He is happy to hear it, along with the others who offer their applause. At night, we see Augie driving while the others dance at the party we heard about earlier. He picks up Dilly on the way, wondering why she's not with the rest of them. Being tired is her excuse. As they ride, she says it would be nice to see him at the church. He doesn't have much of a response for that. On the next day, Garrett rides with Lemuel. The former notices the police are following them. Lemuel instructs that he should let them pass, adding that God is on their side. We wonder why they're being followed like this. We then see Mara tying a cage with rabbits inside. Dilly comes to her somewhat urgently to say there is trouble at the church. This makes Mara get into the truck to find out what went wrong. Upon arriving there, she observes her father preaching to his people. He says the police walked into God's house and took something that allows them to show their devotion to him. He says this thing was taken because people don't understand it. He also emphasizes that some people look down on them, though he wants his people to know their struggle is not against the man. It is against the devil who put him there. He preaches that their faith in God is like a sword against those who would harm them. Their area is their shield. Afterward, he takes his daughter away from the crowd to tell her she should not have driven there. She tells him she got scared he was in trouble, like last time. At that moment, we discover what the police took were the snakes. Garrett told them they were his. Therefore, he faced the consequences. Lemuel knows Garrett will lose his job for this. Later, Lemuel comes to Dilly's place with his daughter. Dilly tells the man her mother, Jolene, has been gone for about 1 month. He wants her to understand it's not her fault. He also wants the girl to stay with them. After he tells Dilly that her mom will return to an empty house, she cries while nodding in understanding. Back at home, Mara steps on something that punctures her foot. Garrett suddenly appears to ask her about it. She is surprised to see he returned so soon, but he thinks the trouble isn't over yet. As he tends to her injured foot, she tells him the police came for them once before. They tore up the church and took her dad while he was giving a sermon. She was very little at the time this incident took place. She thanks Garrett for what he did for the church. The man says he did it for her. He has never seen something so pure as Mara. He thinks she is someone he would do anything to keep. After that, a sermon takes place in the woods. Lemuel talks about how the devil made his home inside a little boy. However, God can save him. They must not be deceived by the lies of the material world. As he says this, he holds the mentioned boy's face up. Lemuel emphasizes that God is the only medicine the boy needs. Holding the boy's head, he commands the devil to leave him. The preacher gets quite involved in this miniature exorcism that he performs. When it's over, Lemuel sits by the lake with his daughter. He tells her she will see Hope first thing in the morning. On the next day, Hope enters Mara's room. She wants the girl to lie on the bed, because there is a process one must go through before a wedding. So Mara lies down for Hope to check on her. Once it's over, they sit side by side, and Hope asks her if Garrett knows. Mara doesn't answer. Hope guesses her father is ignorant of this too. We realize Hope has learned that Mara is pregnant. She thinks it's best that nobody knows about it for now. Mara shows how upset she is. Following this, Mara sits at the dinner table. Her father asks what's wrong with her, because he notices something is off. She responds by leaving the table to go upstairs. Garrett is forced to tell her dad that he knows how girls are. They're always getting riled up about something. He soon switches the topic to congratulate Dilly on the dinner they are having. Supposedly, she prepared it. On another day, Mara goes to see Aji as he sands some wood. He approaches her with concern, asking if everything is okay. She worriedly tells him that everything is mixed up. She's trying to see God's plan, but she cannot. Hearing this makes Aji hug her. He tries to comfort her, along with apologizing about their situation. When she starts behaving lovingly toward him, he tells her not to. He wants her to go, confusing her. All he is doing is what she asked of him earlier. He also shares that he got a job for himself elsewhere. This means he'll be leaving the area. He wants Mara to know there is nothing left for him now that she's marrying Garrett. During the conversation, both of them struggle emotionally. We see Aji's mother watching them behind her window. Aji then comes home and she asks if he's been engaged with Mara. Upon claiming he didn't, she says Mara is pregnant. She wants to know if that's his baby growing inside the girl. In a few seconds, he turns back around to nod his head. This makes Hope emotional, telling him he could burn for this mistake. What Aji wants is for her to stop talking religiously all the time. She comes to him, crying, saying he must repent, in addition to asking for forgiveness. Otherwise, God will deny him, as he has denied God. In the next scene, we see him where Dilly wanted to see him, at church. He surprises Mara by asking her to give him a Bible. During the sermon, Lemuel speaks that he hears God whispering to him inside many things, including the rattles of snakes. If one keeps quiet, one can hear him. He asks his people if they can hear God. Aji nods his head with his eyes closed. In a surprising moment, he voices that he does. He even stands up to say it again. This prompts Lemuel to call him up front. He asks the young man if he's ready to submit himself before God. Aji firmly says that he is. We wonder why he's doing this, if he's doing it mainly for Mara. His mom rejoices in his decision. Lemuel's next step is to take out a snake from a box. Seeing this, Mara stands up with worry. Aji is given the reptile to hold high in his hands as it moves around. It is the ultimate way in which they show their faith. While he holds it, misfortune strikes as the snake bites his arm. Aji falls from it. He quickly gets placed into a truck to be taken away. Mara watches him go with more worry. Later, she sits at home, singing with the ladies. Then she stands outside the room where Aji is being kept. She listens to him in his troubled state. We see his bite mark. He pleads to have a doctor look at him, but Lemuel says a doctor won't do anything for him. Only honest faith will help him get through this. God is asking Aji to believe in him. His mom joins in to say he's being tested. They're all being tested, Lemuel adds. After comforting him, they leave the room to let him rest. Alone now, Aji struggles to find something in his coat. It happens to be a knife he takes out, which he uses to cut his wound. He tries sucking out the infected blood and spits it out. Outside the room, Lemuel prays that Aji be saved from the devil. While he does, Aji's parents go to see their son again. They are there, seeing the cut he made. Mara joins them, along with Dilly. Hope tries stitching his injury, yet her nervousness does not allow her to keep still. This makes Mara volunteer to help. Soon, Aji's dad Zeke leaves with Dilly, allowing Mara to concentrate. However, Hope makes it hard for her by saying the girl effectively lied to her, by making Hope believe Garrett was the father of her baby. She says God is punishing them both now. In the main room, Garrett asks Lemuel if Mara is still tending to him. All the preacher says is that she has to do her part. Garrett thinks she has done more than enough. We see he is jealous of her being there, as Mara faithfully stays by Aji's side. Eventually he wakes up. She wants to tell the others about this, though he wants her to stay with him. He says he needs the hospital or else he won't survive. Mara says God will not abandon him. Unfortunately for her, he says he does not hear God. He never has. What he did for her. He cries, saying he will lose his life, and she has to help him. Mara decides to pray for him. Since he wants her to pray there with him, the girl lies beside Aji. Meanwhile, Garrett decides he has had enough of sitting there while his fiancée is tending to someone else. Therefore, he starts ascending to the upper floor. He opens the door to witness his lady lying beside Aji. She quickly gets up before getting grabbed by the angered man. Of course, Aji can't stand to see him do that to her, so he yells for him not to touch Mara. At that point, Hope enters too, yelling for Garrett to stop. She says the devil is there, poisoning all of them. The next scene has Garrett driving Mara back home. Upon both of them exiting the truck, he angrily tells her she will stay away from Aji. In the meantime, we see Zeke place another snake near his sleeping son for some reason. Hope is there to see it. Apparently, one snake wasn't enough for them. In the morning, Mara plans to go against Garrett's wish by deciding to go check on Aji. Dilly accompanies her. As they walk on the road, Lemuel drives by to see them. The man is upset, telling his daughter to get in the truck. This leaves Dilly alone during her visit to Aji. Hope is there to say she thought he would have healed already. She then goes to sit on the stairs, where we see how broken she has become. Following this, Lemuel arrives home with his daughter. He comes to Garrett to say it won't end well for him. Yet he thinks Mara will settle down after the wedding. According to Lemuel, that won't happen unless Garrett starts acting like a man. He advises him to teach Mara how to be a wife, because Lemuel can't. His role is being a dad. When Mara enters the living room, Garrett sits in a chair, telling her to get a tub with water for him. Her entering the kitchen gets Mara the same message from her father. This prompts the girl to fill a tub before bringing it to Garrett to wash his feet. Supposedly, this is what these people believe a good wife should be like. While she does it, she wants him to understand there are limits to what she will let him do to her. Back at Aji's house, his parents occupy his room. Hope tells Zeke this is their fault. They allowed their son to slip away. Crying, she says they will lose him. The chance of him surviving another night is slim. Zeke says he won't survive if his arm remains intact. Hope does not like what he's implying. She doesn't think it's up to them, God must run his course. Afterward, Dilly comes to Mara to inform her of what she observed on her visit. She says Aji had the same look on him that all the others had. Supposedly, this has happened several times already. We are led to believe all the people who were in his condition lost their lives. But Mara says he made it through the first night. Getting emotional, she says it's her fault. She's the one who should be punished. That is when she reveals to Dilly she is carrying Aji's child. Dilly treats this information almost like a tragedy. At Mara's house, Garrett howls like a wolf outside at night. That makes Lemuel tell someone to get him. Dilly decides to do it. Out there, he starts coming on to the girl because he's drunk. She tells him to stop because she came there to say something to him. So he allows her that opportunity. We know what she wants to inform him about, yet she hesitates to say it right away. Instead, she starts saying that she's worried Mara is losing herself. She's not listening to God anymore. Once he asks why her thoughts are such, she replies that it's because of Aji. What Dilly says about the poisoned man, we do not get to hear. We can only assume she told Garrett the ugly truth. The scene briefly switches over to Lemuel, praying that God makes Aji strong at this crucial time. At that moment, Garrett walks in with an attitude toward Mara. He starts saying that he gave everything to her. He loved her more than anything, and he still does. However, she is ruining him. He wants to know why she lied to him by saying she loved him. Mara escapes his hold, saying she didn't lie. He holds her again against the refrigerator, to which she says he's hurting her. Then he smacks her. The man is overcome with disappointment, to the point where he attempts to violate her. Thankfully, Lemuel comes in to see Garrett's disgusting behavior. He throws the guy he entrusted to his daughter out of the house. In his defense, Garrett yells out that Mara is a harlot, but the father doesn't care what she is at the moment. What's important is what he witnessed this vile man try to do. Therefore, he collects a shotgun to point it at him. Even after Garrett tells him the worst that Mara has done, Lemuel gives a warning shot that makes him run to his truck to drive away. After that disastrous happening, Lemuel is flabbergasted. He wonders what will unfold from this event. Upon returning home to his crying daughter, all he can tell her is it's time to get clean. In the next scene, both of them are at the church. Mara's dad gives her a short speech about how the woman was the first to sin. In the meantime, we see Audrey's blackened arm. This is how bad his parents allowed it to get. Hope injects him with a substance. It's likely something that helps him stay unconscious. We can infer this because of what we observe Audrey's parents have decided to do. A man comes in to give Zeke an electric saw. Back at the church, Lemuel takes out the lethal serpent from the box. He wants to cleanse his daughter with it. After placing it on her shoulders, he watches in anticipation as it slithers around her. How will God use this beast on Mara? Will he give her the same treatment as he did to Audrey? While that anxiety-ridden moment takes place, the other difficult moment starts happening too. Zeke activates the electric saw to start cutting his son's arm off. Hope cannot witness such turmoil. She has to sit down, putting her hands together in a prayer position. Eventually, Mara removes the snake from herself and presents it to her dad. The man can only cry happy tears. God has forgiven her, he says. Mara places the redeeming reptile back in the box. Once that important task is done, she mentions the other important task, Audrey needing help, though it's not the kind they can give him. Mara starts heading for the door, prompting Lemuel to warn her that if she leaves, she won't come back. Saying farewell to her father, the girl leaves anyway. She rushes to Audrey's house. When she gets there, she sees him lying there with an amputated arm. After telling Hope he needs a doctor, she replies that faith is what her son needs. But Mara tries to deliver some sense into his stubborn mother. She tells her that Audrey won't find his faith, because he was never like them. Hope doesn't want to hear this nonsense, yet Zeke says they have no more time. At that point, Mara reminds Hope of something crucial she once told Mara, that she needed to find someone who sees her like Hope and Zeke see each other. That is who Audrey is to her. That is who she will be for him. The last thing she says is that Audrey wanted her to take him away from this place, so she will do that. All Hope can do now is say that she understands our heroine. Afterward, they rush Audrey into the truck for Mara to drive away with him. As they ride along the road, Audrey wakes up for a moment to see the girl he loves saving him. Mara can only cry. From this point on, her life will develop with Audrey.